Welcome to the All About You podcast. This is the show where it's all about you. We dive into the fascinating, the extraordinary, and the wonderfully unique world of you, with the aim to educate, motivate, and inspire with conversations from amazing guests. I'm your host, Sheila, and let me introduce you to this week's guest. Guest this week is David Swift, and he's an author of a book called Operation Annie. So David, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Sheila. It's a pleasure to be here.
David, let's start. You've written a book called Operation Annie.
True.
Before we go into the book, I want to go back a bit because you, back in the day, were an English teacher.
I was, that's true.
So did that have any impact on you becoming a writer?
Definitely, yes. I spent over 20 years, once I'd been to university and got at Leeds University as well, got my English degree, and I used it for teaching. And so yes, my main subject is English. Taught for around 20 years in the north of England. I've taught primary school children for a lot of that time. Because of my love of English, I've obviously gained quite a lot of pleasure from teaching the English part of the curriculum, amongst other things, because I was a male in a primary school, physical, and I came from a sporting background. I could offset the academic thing there with doing sport and stuff like that with the kids, so I had a nice balance throughout my teaching career.
Being a teacher did influence you to take up writing?
Yeah, without a doubt, absolutely. It's just like many other occupations, many other professions. You've got ready-made material. You've got 28, 30 of them in front of you on a daily basis, Plus there's the parents and the stories of the parents and the lifestyle of the parents, and it all blends in, it all goes into the mixing pot.
So how did the idea of Operation Annie reveal itself to you?
When I was coming to the end of what I would have called my full-time professional career, I entered teaching at university as a mature student, so I was sort of behind the curve, if you like. I'd reached a point in teaching where I could look around without getting too political and see changes occurring. I thought, well, I don't want this as a full-time occupation anymore, so I'll take a sideways move. So I took an early retirement, which is one of the luxuries that teaching will allow you. It gave me the opportunity then, because I did have a burning desire to pursue my own ambition, which was writing. It was writing before I went to university. I went to university to study English, to become a writer. And the teaching bit was a bit of a, it just took me down an avenue that provided me with money to pay for a mortgage and bring up my son and everything. But once my needs were fulfilled in that respect, I got to the point where I thought I really do need to pursue my ambition, which is what I'd entered the profession for and gone to university. So to that extent, I'd made my mind up that I need to do a sideways move. I'd had the idea of the book. It was in my head for a long time as an idea. And I thought, well, in an ideal world, you'd feel like, because you feel like you'd like to be a politician and start, shouting and making big changes. But that's one way you try to bring a change to society. But then I looked at the politicians and thought, nah, I don't want to be one of you guys, thank you. So one way of trying to get your message, and shall we say a couple of degrees of influence, if you're lucky, is to do it by being an author. At the centre of your writing, you've got an agenda, and there's no two ways about it. And I've always had an agenda. As soon as I pick a pen up, there's an agenda. But then you couch that, hopefully, in an entertaining story. And so I felt the need to do that at that particular time, which is why I thought, right, yes, the book, I've got the time now. I've got to devote myself to writing a book. And this is how it came about.
So can we have a little snapshot of the brief story of Operation Annie?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it basically hangs on the premise that, and bearing in mind this was when it was written, this wasn't spoken about in the media. Basically, it wasn't vocalised as as frequently and as often and to such an extent as it is now. So, and I felt the need that, well, let me do it then. And basically it's the fact that I was so sick and tired of putting the TV on, the radio, walking past the newspaper stand, and everything being doom and gloom. Every news item you can see here was doom and gloom. And it got me thinking, what is the effects of this on a human being like me? And then take it to the next level. What is the effects of this on a nation? It's almost like it's been done deliberately. And if it's been done deliberately, it's by a minority of privileged people. And they're basically weaponising news for an effect. That's taking it to the absolute, limit. People would then say, oh yeah, but just being an alarmist, But at the time, I did feel that. So I wrote the book, and I thought, because, so in the book, it's Annie, who the book's named of, and she's a central character, although she doesn't, it's all about her rather than her being proactive. She becomes basically, from the minute I picked the pen up, she's just a metaphor for a large section of society, and it could be in England, it can be anywhere that's subject to media. So she's really just a metaphor. But I have seen people who have gone under, and I'm not saying it was purely through media. There's other life, there's life influences, things that happen to them in their life. But it's something when I've given it a lot of thought to, I thought, well, no, that's feasible, that. And I say, I have known one or two people that suffered, I hate using the word depression, but it's true, but I'm not saying it was purely the media that did it. But when someone is in that fragile state of mind, I think the last thing they want is wall-to-wall, 24/7 negative media. And so it's just something that I needed to, in my own sweet way, was to say, and this was written mainly for young adults anyway, is say, hey guys, wake up, just wake up, look around you. There is, in this life, on a daily basis, there's a load of good stuff going on out there. There's a load of good news. Unfortunately, the people that are in control of the media choose not to let you hear it or read it. Therein lies a problem. I think we need to write a book about it.
I mean, that is just absolutely amazing, because I know myself, living in Valencia here, our city's had a very tough year. There was a very, very big fire in a block of flats earlier in the year, and we've just had the Dana, which I'm sure most people have heard about all around the world, about the storms and the floods and how it's devastated huge areas of Valencia. So Valencia has gone through an incredibly difficult year this year. And I'm sure so many people around the world were watching the TV with what had been going on. But I agree with 100% with watching the English news, the Spanish news. It's all negative news. I mean, I know we need facts about what's going on, but in general, there is generally not a great deal of positive news. And every time I watch the news, I say, they should end the news saying, well, today's good news, Mrs. Robinson's cat was rescued from the tree.
Exactly.
Because literally, the last thing you hear can be in your head and leave you either positive or negative. So yes, we cannot ignore what's going on in the world. That's a fact. But if we ended the news with something positive, and that's the last thing we hear, I think that would help a lot of people. And I think going through the pandemic, a lot of people were sitting in front of their TVs 24 hours a day. People's mental health, yes, we have to be aware, but when you're in those circumstances, I mean, my generation had never lived through a pandemic. We had no idea. It was the first time it had really happened for most people, so we were all glued to the TV. But I personally got to the point, okay, I'm going to watch it once in the morning, once in the evening, and the TV is off. Because easily, as you say, you could get into this very downward slope.
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting that you have written a book talking about the effects of media and how it can affect our mental health.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting that you say this book is aimed at like young adolescents.
Yeah. I say I deliberately aimed it at them because basically you want the message to be sown in the minds of the next generation, and that's what they are. It's probably a bit too late for some in my age to start picking up on that seed and then going, well, what am I going to do about it? But the younger generation, as turns out in the book, they pick up the mantle and go, yeah, and they stand there and say, yeah, we're not going to stand for this. And it's that trying to just bring about that awakening and hope that one or two of the younger generation pick up on it. As I say, moving on through time, mental welfare, mental illness has taken a much higher profile of this last few years, and rightly so too. And also the conversation that we're talking about the media in particular, we call it persuasion because they're trying to get their agenda across. But we do now. It's come to the forefront a lot, and it's in everyday's language and discussions. You're sitting on a bus, you could hear the conversation going on, and that's rightly so as well. And I mean, we could easily spend another 2 hours discussing this as the issues in Israel, Palestine. We could. That's a whole new discussion to be had. But it's only taking the same problem and just moving it like on a chessboard. Well, let's move it over here this week. Let's move it over there, and somebody somewhere has got that power to do that.
So David, let's talk about the character Annie then.
Yeah.
How did you come up with this character? Is it a real person?
She's an amalgamation of 3 or 4 real people. I did have a friend when I was growing up who had a mum who was, I'll say this in a lovely way, she was neurotic, right? She lived on her nerves because her soul... she really, really wanted to provide well for her family, which a lot of mums did in those days, but doing it on shoestring, so she'd have 3 or 4 part-time jobs and run around and trying to bring 3 kids up, and, they were my friends as well. I'd hear my mum say, we'll call her Janet, oh, Janet, she's living on her nerves again. She's living on her nerves. She's been to doctors, and she's got these pills, whatever, Someone with that sort of characteristic and that outlook on life, and there are a lot of them about. And a friend of mine's mum was like that. So she was part of the mix of the character. I have, in the past, before I come into teaching, I've had 3 professions, actually, who won't deal with the other 2, but one of them meant that I was working in the NHS, and I used to get called in quite a lot to do auxiliary nursing on a psychiatric unit, 2 or 3 psychiatric units. So I would find myself doing night shifts, working one-to-one observations with a patient that needed support, So I was privileged, really, in spending quite a lot of time in that environment and looking around me and obviously working with the patients as well. These were real life people that were suffering, and you would sit there and be chatting with them, and you'd be analysing as well at the same time, think, what's brought you to this point in life, So 3 or 4 of those people have also gone into the mix of Annie, just little traits of which I've noticed them, and they're real life traits as well. So they've gone into Annie as well. So yeah, it was an amalgamation of things, plus a friend's mum as well, who was, as my mum would say, she's living on her nerves. It's a bit of everything, really. So I thought, well, she was almost like a mum to me and my sister as well. So she was a nice person.
Oh. So David, let's talk about the process of you writing a book. Did you bang it all out on a computer, or did you sit there with pen and paper? I
got a nice laptop, a new laptop around the time that I decided to set the sideways and move full-time teaching. I knew I couldn't financially sustain doing just becoming a writer, because you've got to be able to afford to live. But I allowed myself a certain period of time, and so I would start first of all with just copious amounts of of writing pads and notebooks and jotting it, and a massive amount of post-it notes. What I would do is formulate my ideas. This is over a period of weeks, but working at it, So I gave myself a period of time to do it, and I was living on my own at the time, so I wasn't interrupting anybody else's lifestyle, It was a mixture of picking up a pen and writing, because if it's in my bag, I can pick it up, in Costa Coffee and start scribbling stuff down. And then I got the laptop, and so it was a bit of laptop and that. So you do loads and loads of writing on here, and then think, right, I'm going to commit this to laptop. I know some people do it the other way around. All is different. I know that when I've spoke to other people that write quite a lot of stuff. There's no wrong way, there's no right way in my book. It's whatever suits you. Do loads of preparation work and do a lot of research as well to make sure that even though it may just look like maybe a throwaway comment in the book, I need to know that I can stand somebody challenging me and going, excuse me, but... So I do the research as well. Get it all together, collate it all together. And it's a room like this, and I've got post-its everywhere. And so I'll be getting my drafts, and they're all over the place. And I must admit, it's a very physical thing with me. So I will start over on the left here, and there'll be sheets and sheets and sheets with post-its all over the place and up the wall. And so it's a physical thing, so when I walk out the room I come back and know exactly what I've got. And then I transfer that onto my laptop. And then when I've got it on the laptop, when I ever tidy up and I've numbered the pages with all post-its stuck on them, I will make sure that this total mess goes in an order, so as I know that everything is in an order. Should I have to go back to it, say the laptop decides to pack into something, So that's how I sort of come about doing this. And this goes for the same anyway when I'm writing a poem or a song or whatever it is. I do like a physical thing to start with. And then, I think that's it, and then I'll commit it to my laptop. So that's my way of doing it. But linked in with that is a sort of... this was a real learning curve for me, because I'd never taken on something... time consuming and demanding as a book. I've written up lots of other stuff. I needed to get the most out of the time that I'd allowed myself to do this, which meant that once I got up and running, it was committed onto my laptop, and then you're editing and editing and editing. There's no end to the amount of edits that you can do, and you should do as well. I can't think how many edits that book's had, but it comes to a point where it takes over your life, because you've created something that's totally taken over your life. You can't put it down, because you dare put it down, because when you're in the full flow, you think, I've got to keep going. And so what I did was I had a mattress upstairs where I lived in the bedroom, and I was locked in that room, and I was literally like a hermit. I had stubble. I looked like I'd been dragged up. I'd slept out under a bush all night, I had stubble everywhere, letting myself go, just eating copious bars of Cadbury's Dairy Milk, because, and that's what it takes, I think. It takes total absorption in the subject matter. You then start talking to yourself as if you've got mates. So I'm talking to Annie, I'm talking to Andy, I'm talking to my characters. At that point, they've become so real to me that they've lifted off the page, and I can have a conversation with them, like I'm in this room now, And I can also then talk to them as if, I'm trying to plan a slight plot deviation. And I can say, so Andy, what do you think we should do here? This is crazy. I know this is crazy.
No, I think this is amazing. I love that.
So Andy, what did you think? Do you feel like getting on that bus there, just having to wear that lady there, and dropping a big hint about something? Yeah, okay. So it would go like that, And I know this, sometimes I think if there was a camera in here and somebody saw me, I would definitely get committed onto psychiatric unit, They would definitely have me. I'd allowed myself plenty of time, so there was several weeks of this, and not wanting to go out. I had to obviously go shopping to Tesco's, but you don't want to go to Tesco's, because what it's done is you're so single-minded. You do not want any distractions. You don't want to be pushing a trolley through there, and then getting, or having to queue at the cashier, because all you want to do is get the next bit of that book down because you've got a great idea, you think it's brilliant, and you don't want to lose the moment. So with me, it takes over. And I've been lucky enough, because the way my life turns out, I've been on my own at that period, You never reach a point where you're absolutely satisfied. You never fold your arms and go, that's that done then. It never reaches that. And I think, and as I'm sure everybody's the same, you think, I think I could just change this. And then you have to bring the discipline in then, and then say, right, that is it now. I'm going to draw a line under that, certainly for now anyway. To not quite the same extent as that. Other projects that I've written, several play scripts and stuff like that. But the last book that I've written, which is finished, it's all ready to press the button and go. I had to do a similar total absorption thing in it. The second one, I won't go off the subject because you've asked me about Operation Annie, but the one that's just about ready to hit the ether has got several, which I could think are humorous things in it, and I've become so absorbed with it that there's been some times that I've been sitting there hysterically laughing, thinking, I love this, and this is sort of the payback that you get for writing stuff as a writer, and so it makes it worthwhile, and so I'm now eager to know what this next book's going to do when it does come out. We'll talk about that another time probably.
Your conversation with your characters,
yeah,
I think is just magical.
As
in asking your characters,
yeah,
what do you think about this, and you're having this two-way conversation with the characters you've created, and maybe there's a little bit of people or circumstances created that character, but I love the way you're having a conversation with these characters about another storyline or maybe a little change of direction. I think that is absolutely genius. I absolutely love that. And I love this, your next book ready to hit the ether. So that was what I was going to say to you. Did you self-publish?
I approached a few publishing houses, in the square mile of Bloomsbury, London, which is where, where they all hang out. But as I got the rejections coming back, I thought, well, actually, I don't want you to have my book. You're not going to do it justice. You're certainly a million miles removed from the subject matter of this. So you're going to give me short shrift. Those sort of people, the border in my mind, they're a bit too close to the problem of the actual nucleus of this book. I'm sure it would be lovely to have someone like J.K. Rowling's publisher, what have you. Just judging by the tone of the rejection slips, and the positive sound, it's so nice to let you down, it's not your fault, I've always liked, it's more like that, But then I thought, well, I can see a pattern emerging, and I want this book out, so that was a decision to self-publish, and I think at the time there was there was definitely an increase in the number and the volume of self-published books being put out there. If you looked on Amazon, you could see them, lots of them. So I thought I'll give it a go, self-publishing. What it is as well is, I'm thinking, well, the process, writing the book, everything, I love all this. Do I really want someone to then take over my life and say, right, here's a schedule, you're doing this, this and this, you've got to do this, this and this? Because that's not what I'm in it for. So I needed to keep that autonomy. So to that extent, I deliberately chose to self-publish. Because all it is, it's a slog and it's hard work, but it means that then you're like man in a suitcase, you've got your bag of books, and you're going to go and approach coffee houses, bookstore, independent bookstores, and that way you're going to put your book out there, and you'll do book readings Saturdays, in an independent bookshop, mainly around Yorkshire, and you may only be reading to 10, 15 people, But when you walk away, if you just sold 3 books, that's fine by me. That's fine. It's just a little bit of payback for you, and it's not the money. You throw the money away, you know. But it's just the fact that someone you've done the honour of buying that book because they think it's worth, well, you know, and so, and I think that's probably, I'm going off the question now, Sheila. So,
no, not at all. I mean, I think this certainly echoes what so many authors have said.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's good.
I've had lots of authors on here who have self-published.
Yeah.
And I always liken it, because there's no way on this earth I'm going to write a book, but I always sort of liken it to, you are birthing a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have spent so much time on this project.
Yeah.
It's so personal, whether it's fiction or it's your life story or whatever.
Yeah.
You have spent so much time and energy and passion on this.
Yeah.
And I always wonder about these publishers. Yes, they are professionals in that world, but it always interests me how they can get a manuscript and go, okay, this is going to be amazing, or this isn't. Yeah. And it's rather like, if you and I read the same book, it might be you absolutely love it and I was just hated it, etc., etc. The same story,
absolutely,
same characters, but it's how we create that story in our mind. To you, I mean, yes, as an English teacher, you might say, oh, you know, the grammar is terrible and the style it's written in, We go back to the story of J.K. Rowling. I mean, she took all her, but no, and then we all know what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I have got so much gratitude, whether that's the right word, for people who do this labour of love and write their book and say, do you know what? I'm not going to tout it round to publishers. And if that's what you want to do, that's absolutely fine, no judgment. But for people who go, well, no, actually, I'm going to do it myself, I think it's just phenomenal.
I think so. And I agree. And like I say, you can go to book readings, you can go to things like, say, Hemingway evening in Valencia, full of talented people getting up and reading their stuff. You can sit there and you can watch someone read a script or something out, and you know that they're absolutely fantastic writers. You're probably never ever going to pick a book up of theirs in a bookshop that's a bestseller. But this is where going back to what you just said, everyone's opinions on a book will be different. Yours will be different to mine. So therefore, it is absolutely subjective. And if you add to the subjectiveness of it, whatever it is that goes with the business side of publishing, then they also have an agenda as well. I think you've got to be very, very, very lucky anyway to be published and be successful. I know they say it's probably a bigger number now, but they used to say there's 50,000 books published that basically just get pulped, trashed, a year. I think, well, I don't want to be one of them 50,000. I'd rather just, get man out there. And like I've just described, go and do coffee houses, independent book sales, just see them go out and sell them. And then if you're really lucky, someone will write to you and say, oh, I really enjoyed this, or something like that, and that's your payback. That's my version of becoming a millionaire.
So what was it like when you received the first copy of your book? Presumably you've got a hard copy as opposed to the electronic copy.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It is. I've got to admit, it is. I can imagine it. It must be the same with anybody that's creating. It must be so. Ed Sheeran, when he got his first album back, you look at it and you think, oh man,
you physically got something, whether it's an album, a single.
Exactly, because what's gone into the making of it, and with my book, I felt like, oh, this is brilliant, It's I keep using the phrase, but it's your payback for the effort, And so it was. It's a great moment, to see. And because at this point in my time, I'd decided to take a sideways move, but I couldn't afford to live on fresh air, so I turned a full-time career into a part-time, because I went on to supply teaching. And then what happened was, word had got around the schools in where I was based in Scarborough in Yorkshire. Oh, Dave, I've written a book, blah, 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 you know. And then what this would do, this did spiral. It was, oh, will you come and do a literacy morning with our kids? Yeah, sure, you know. And so it led on to head teachers contacting me and saying, Dave, would you come in and do a morning here or an afternoon there? The only brief was, can you just try and motivate some of the lads, because without being sexist, but it's a known fact that the lads would rather play football in general, you know. Can you motivate some of the lads, and can you just throw good ideas about, a few ideas, and just do a few activities with them? Yeah, sure, you know. Took off, you see, on the strength of just having published one book, you know. I like that because it just gave I could combine the two, my love of English language and teaching it with, for once, not being tied to a curriculum that's been prescribed by somebody who years ago, as you know, he never had any interest, or she never had any interest in education anyway, and they've moved on to greater things, you know. You're left with this prescriptive curriculum that does no one any favours. But so I was free of all that as well, so I could just go in, and I really, really enjoyed doing those sessions, and the kids did, you know. And they would, by the end of the morning or the day or whatever it was, the kids, they come up, you know, arms round you. Oh, Mr. Swift, you know, can I read you this? Can I read you this? Yeah, go on. Right, everyone, put your pens down. We're going to listen to this, you know. So they would have created something that they're proud of, you know. And then yeah. What do you think? You know, always asking for the kids to come back round and say, okay, what did you actually? You say you like it, but what did you like about it? Come on, spill the beans. What actually part of that did you like? And if you can get a kid to actually question themselves, you know, yeah, what did I like about it, you know? I think this. Oh, I like the way that the little Johnny used similes, Mrs. Oh yeah, well, go on. Give us an example of a simile of use. You know, it was like this. So on the strength of this, it gave me something that I didn't bargain for when I wrote it. But that again is part of my payback. So I'm not selling millions of books, but I'm getting those experiences, you know.
So David, if I was going to meet you for the very first time and I said to you, and what do you do? Because that's a very English thing, isn't it?
I love it.
Would you describe yourself as an author?
I think, again, this is going back to our opinions on books and that. It is subjective. If I chose to label myself as an author or a writer, that's because I feel, you know, I'm equipped and capable doing the job. To that extent, yeah, I know I can write, you know. It's not just me thinking, yeah, well, I'm a writer now, I'm playing at it. I mean, if I could I give you a little thing that I was a little bit wary of using the title, you know. It doesn't go on my passport as writer, and I'm a little bit reticent to say I am a writer, but you know, within company, and you look around at similar-minded people, say the Hemingway evening, that place is full of writers. Whether they admit to it or not, they are writers, you know. When I did the sideways movement, before I did the sideways movement from teaching, and I thought, I need to write, I need to get this down and make an impression on the kids' minds, you know. I'll write a book. Competition in England, in the UK, it was a BBC competition it was Look North actually. It was asking for people to, because I'm from Yorkshire, so you can tell by my accent anyway. It was asking for people to put pen to paper, you know, write a short piece, not particular genre, but just a short piece that celebrates the positive and beautiful things about Yorkshire, because we're proud of it. So I'd just done mine, you know, and because I lived at Scarborough, overlooking the bay, you know, it was like 300 metres from the sea and that. And at the time I was massively into surfing. So this is where I was coming from. So I wrote this thing about the beautiful scenery of Scarborough. It is picturesque and that, blah, blah, blah. It was put up there, and there was a panel of judges. The judge decided on these, because we're going to put together a production for BBC Look North. But I was chosen as what my piece of work was chosen as, one that was up there. I'm not sure if I should name the guy because he's still current in he's a top playwright. We'll leave it at that. He's a top playwright. Most people in England will have seen, in Britain anyway, will have seen at least one of his productions. He's a nice guy. And anyway, so he called me in. I wanted you to get in front of the microphone. I wanted you to read your piece, because we're going to use it on BBC Look North, if you don't mind. Yeah, sure. But anyway, so he did this. Went an interview like we're having now, and then it was, Radio Sheffield want to interview as well because blah blah blah. Oh really? So this sort of escalated from this piece that I'd written. Anyway, what the guy said to me then was, he says, I hope you don't mind this, but I was taken with your piece, right? And he's the guy that I respect as a writer, you see. And he said, I was so taken with it that I hope you don't mind, but I used it as a basis for a play. Okay. So he said, it's premiering, I'm premiering it in your hometown in about a month's time. So I'm asking you, do you mind? Certainly not. I'm honoured. I'm actually honoured to think that you've done this with my piece, So I went there for I think it might have been the second day, I think, of its production. And I sat there. And I sat there in the audience and I watched some of my lines coming back to me. And I watched a couple of characters that I'd written in the thing coming back to me. And I thought, I can't believe this. This is surreal that I'm watching this with these other about 500 or 600 other people, watching this that's been instigated by my writing. And so, as I walked out, I thought to myself, well, actually, if I was doing that, I'd have done it differently, I think I'd have made more use of this and made more use of that, So as I walked away, I thought, that is it. I'm definitely going to... My book's on the way now. And so that was the actual... In my head, that's what motivated me to then go and start writing.
Because that is a phenomenal story. How come you've never told me this before? That's amazing.
It's just because it linked in with the question that you asked me, that was all, Yeah. And oddly enough, I saw the guy a few months later. Just met him in
a pub?
Yeah, he was waiting for his wife. He was stood outside a lady's clothes shop.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'd come out of this other shop and bumped into him. And we thought he straight away, he goes, it's David. So he remembered me. And he goes, surfer, you're a surfer, because I was a surfer, and some of my writing was about surfing. And he did actually say to me, I'm going to make that play into a film, because it's got surfers in it, and it's all about the beauty of the North Yorkshire coast. And he said, would you mind, because you're a surfer, and I don't know any surfers. I says, leave it with me. If you want surfers, I'll get some of my colleagues. We'll we can do the surfing for you. We can, we can do everything, And I said, I can help you set that up. Unfortunately, as is the way with many of these things, he's still in the process of raising the funding for it, But the email's there, he's emailed me a couple of times. And so if he gets the funding, it will come to it, but I doubt it now,
I mean, that's incredible. Wow.
So that's going back to, do you class yourself as a writer? Well, I think I am, because I know being amongst people like that, they've hold me in fairly reasonably, at least, a little bit high esteem, not much, but...
So, David, before we finish, can you tell us a little bit about the second book?
The second book started off, and I needed to do this. This is going to be really difficult for me to hold back on the political side, because the mess that Britain, I think it's a mess, the mess that Britain's been put into, the lies that the populace have been spewing out through the media for a number of years now, prompted me, basically, everybody's doing it anyway, it's not just me. What happened was I started to write the book, and it was just flowing, because basically I was responding to an existing situation, and basically with me, my characteristic is to resort to satire, you know. And so I was taking a satirical view of, you know, my satirical view on a certain small nucleus of the recent political characters that we've had. And it's a two-pronged plot. It also has something... I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there because you would think, really? How can those subjects possibly intertwine?
So we need to read the book.
You're going to need to do it's my need to get something off my chest again, but it's couched in something, and hopefully people will find it. There's several funny parts in it, you know. They said I've really enjoyed doing it, but the only thing was, it should have been put out a long time ago, because I think satire really is only as good as the present moment in which that you are lampooning. I sent the first complete draft off after loads and loads of drafts, but once I'd honed it, I sent it off to an editor. Once she'd done her bit, she sent it back with a thing on the bottom, and it said something effective. David, blah 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 blah. I'd just like to remind you that it's a fine line between political satire and libel. Exclamation!
So maybe a rewrite or two.
Yeah, exclamation mark. You know. So I've had to rewrite it, and depending on what mood I'm in, I thought, well, do I call him this? Is easily recognisable. And how am I going to be able to defend myself in the High Court? So then I go through and I change his name again, and I change it again. He's had umpteen names to the point that I've almost forgotten what his name is, you know. But anyway, I've honed it down to, I thought, no, he's going to stick at that. And if they come at me, well, I haven't got any money anyway, so, you know, it's not like J.K. Rowling worth billions, you know. They won't get much out of me. So I thought, no, I'm going to do it, because, but the exact time really is slipped. But I'm not in the minority, because at the period I've been writing that, as a response to the chaos that we've had in the House of Parliament over this last few years, several other people have done the same. And the one thing that I do have in common with some other writers is reality has made a mockery of the art that you were trying to put out there. And so reality is more bizarre.
They say reality is stranger than fiction.
It's stranger.
Yeah.
You've used the phrase I'm looking at. It's become so bizarre and so strange. It almost makes my attempt at a satirical book almost like obsolete, because they've done it for me. Thank you very much. And
yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of things happen. I go, you couldn't write this in. You just couldn't.
You can
how can this have happened?
You could not write it. And what happened was, as well, I hate to say this, but as I've been writing this took a lot longer. I did have to do quite a bit of paid work to keep myself going, so I didn't have the luxury as I did before. But nevertheless, with this particular book, I've got to say, and I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but certain parts of it have proven to be prophetic. I can't believe I must be some sort of a soothsayer, because I've, in the most ridiculous, bizarre way, I thought, "Oh, this will be funny," and then when I've written it, 2 weeks later, no, it's happened in real life, and you think, no, this can't keep going on. So you then have to rewrite, because you think, well, people aren't going to believe that I actually wrote that. They think I've just written it as copied some part of the news or something, you know. To that extent, I'm thinking, well, this book, it may be just a little bit after the horse has bolted, but because there are other bits in there that aren't purely dependent upon, you know, the politics of the time. There are other things. So I think, no, yeah, it's definitely going to get published.
So it's coming out 2025?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. You know, so
Let's
it's
get
all
you back for another podcast.
I'd love it, Sheila. Love it, yeah.
So, David, before we finish, any words of wisdom to people? I always say to authors, any words of wisdom for people who are in the middle of writing or have written a book and it's in a drawer or on their computer?
Yeah, you've put me in the spot there. I've never thought myself as being this person who's be giving words of wisdom to anybody. That goes for other things apart from writing. But I suppose if one was to ask me, if I had to be nailed down to give you an answer.
Do you think everybody has got a book in them?
I do actually. I know it's a cliche. It's a massive cliche, but I do believe it because this is the thing, isn't it? Because you'll know yourself. The people that you meet in life, sometimes you think, well, yeah, I have led an interesting life, and then you'll go and meet some of the people that I've met here. They're really interesting people. Because some people have lived abroad and have done this and that and the other. I won't name names, but there's people that that I've come to know now, and you think they are such interesting people. Now, whether they choose to write a book about it's another matter. But if they did choose to, I think, I'd read something about that. And similarly, it can be some people that probably never even left the part of the world, they've operated in a very small sphere. They've still got good stories to tell you. And I do think that whatever you write, there will be an audience somewhere that's I've enjoyed that. It's no different to sitting talking to somebody in a pub. You think, and when you get up and you part your ways, you think, he or she were a nice, interesting person. If you've got any aspirations to write, just do it. But don't go, well, I'm saying this because it's a personal review, but don't ever think of doing it for money. Just do it for yourself. Just do it for yourself. If it makes you bring a tear to your eye or it makes you laugh out loud, then you've at least pleased one person. And if that passes on to someone else that reads it, then that's as good as it gets,
I think that is the best advice ever. If it makes one person laugh, one person drop a tear, you've done it.
I think so.
I think that's the title of the podcast as well.
Hey, brilliant idea, Stu.
I love it when it comes together. David, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. There is so much we've covered there. It's been absolutely brilliant.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Sheila.
So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe for future episodes on whatever platform you are listening on. It is free. And if you have a story to tell, please contact me on allaboutyoupodcast@yahoo.com and let's tell your story.